short and their body's too wide, but there one goes wandering by. It happens all the time. There's just no way lightning could be born. They measured the clouds and it just can't form, but it cracks the sky in every thunderstorm. It happens all the time. It's impossible, 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 until it's not. Ooh. There's a light in the night from stars long gone. A half-formed thought becomes a song. We rise from our grief and go on. It happens all the time. There's a lake that you cannot see across, a way through the woods that I thought I'd lost, clearing out everything that is time to toss. It happens all the time. It's impossible, 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 until it's not. I won't say it cannot be. It hasn't happened yet, but wait and see. Life, followed my heart against all advice, and yes, I've fallen more than once or twice. I'll follow anyway. A golden moon pulls from our sleep and feels as close as our hands and feet. The road's too hard and it's too damn steep. We'll climb it anyway. It's impossible, 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 until it's not. Ooh.
Good morning. That's an awesome song. I remember when Carrie used to play down at Lafayette at some of the bars. I'd go see her sing. My name is Laura Snow, and I'm a member of the board of this congregation. Welcome to you all. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community, nurturing religious freedom and individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. That is our mission statement. If you would like to learn more about this fellowship, please look at our website at uufe.org and join us after the service for our coffee hour. We have some treats and stuff out there too. For the listening enjoyment of all, we ask you at this time to turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. And if you need hearing support, please see the gentleman at our sound desk in the back. I have a couple of announcements. After the service this morning, the Social Justice Committee and other members of the fellowship will be addressing envelopes for the letters they wrote to the 200 voters in Michigan and 100 voters in Pennsylvania. Even if you didn't write letters, feel free to join them for envelope addressing, and they'll go out to lunch afterwards. This will be in the gathering place. Also, next Saturday, September 28th at 11 a.m., Chloe Lawrence and Orlando Campos are getting married, and we all are invited. There will be cake, punch, and a potluck to follow. 11 o'clock, yes. Be sure to sign up for the County Road 9 cleanup for October 12th. I believe the sign-up sheet's out on the island, out in the foyer. The rain date is scheduled for October 19th. And Steve, what time would we meet? 9 a.m., October 12th. Oh, congratulations, Carl. Carl Rust's painting, Faces, was accepted into the Midwest Museum of Art's 46th Juried Regional, and that will be in October. Congratulations. And Reverend Dan will be leading a small group ministry program this year based on the curriculum by Soul Matters. These are small, closed groups that meet throughout the year, so it is important to be able to commit to attending. These groups are ideal ways to build relationships, deepen your personal spirituality, and to broaden your understanding on a variety of topics. Reverend Dan hopes to begin these groups in October. Please contact Reverend Dan directly at revdan.uufe@yahoo.com, or you can talk to him today during coffee hour if you're interested. Sounds like a wonderful small group, the curriculum and stuff sounds great. And this is the Sunday after the board meeting, so I'll just give you a brief update on what the board's been working on. Actually, a lot of work was done yesterday, and so our Tuesday board meeting, we discussed some of the things that we would be doing this past Friday. I know many of you were able to come and meet Lisa Presley on Friday, and then our board spent a good chunk of yesterday working with Lisa. And so a lot of what our board meeting Tuesday was particulars about that. We also continued discussing safety concerns around the congregation, particularly when it comes to dealing with people who might not be safe to be around. So we continue to work on that. We're hoping to develop some, we're hoping we don't have to implement what we've discussed. Let's put it that way. But we are discussing safety issues. That continues. We discussed a lot of buildings and grounds concerns. We have task-oriented leaders for this, since buildings and grounds is in an interesting position without a chair. So we're very fortunate to have a lot of members stepping up and taking on tasks, specific tasks. And it's working. It requires some communication, but it is working. We have folks, I don't see TJ here. She's going to be leading up cleanup down in the basement and organizing some things regarding that. Chuck and Ken are splitting tasks with taking care of the ramp, our ADA compliant ramp from the building to the parsonage, and we'll be doing some revamping of the ramp. And so we have these, that was a good chunk of what we talked about, is the buildings and grounds and caring for our facility. And so we have these projects, and we're fortunate enough to have people stepping up to take on the leadership role for some of these projects. So if you think of a project or you see something that needs to be done, please contact somebody on the board, and we will see about getting that cared for as a project-based item rather than a buildings and ground committee item. So there's a little bit of restructuring. We're having to adapt, and so far it seems to be that adaptation seems to be working pretty well. And then there will be some information coming about, I want to get back to what we did yesterday. We had a workshop with Lisa Presley. That was our big thing for the week. It went very well. We dove deep into some things, and we will be putting together a more formal announcement with information on what we covered in that meeting. I'm still digesting some of it. It was pretty intense. So look forward to announcements in the focus about some of the things we covered and some of the things we hope to do for the congregation as a board. And finally, I would like to thank everybody this morning. Janelle and Phil for the flowers, Chuck Bauer for setting up the coffee and tea. Thank you so much. Coffee, it is my lifeblood. Lori Tweedale providing snacks, and Carl and Chuck at the sound desk. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning. Our opening words come from Reverend Gretchen Haley. There is nothing you need to bring with you to be welcome here. No right beliefs or proof of citizenship. No eternal optimism or clarity of conviction. No boundless courage or endless expertise. You do not need to know what brought you here or how you will solve that problem you're turning over and over in your mind. Your bills do not need to be paid, and your checkbook can be a mess. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working, and your knees may be creaking. You do not need to be already perfect, or even halfway, to belong in this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us. Where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all. Where life still pulses and rages and heals and transforms, creating us and this day anew once again. So come, let us enter into worship together.
Our chalice lighting this morning is by Douglas John Traversa. In a world filled with the darkness of ignorance, let us bring the light of reason. In a world filled with the darkness of despair, may we share the light of hope. In a world filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. Please join me in reciting our covenant in unison. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
.323 in the hymnal is new, so Lizzie will be playing it all the way through for us once, and stand and sing if you're willing and able. 323, Break Not the Circle.
So we're still getting to know each other, but one thing you'll learn very quickly is that I love stories. And we only have a couple kids here, but that's okay because you're going to get a story anyway. And this is called The Stonecutter by Benjamin Hoff, and it comes from the bigger book, The Tao of Pooh. So I'm speaking specifically to the younger folks at the moment. So we're going to talk about accepting yourself and others. So the story today is about a man who isn't happy being just the way he is. He always wants to be somebody different, someone he thinks is better than himself. And this man is a stonecutter. Do you know what a stonecutter is? Well, a long time ago, before there were machines, people had to cut stone out of the mountains by hand. They used a hammer and a chisel, and it was really hard work. and it didn't pay very well. So stonecutters were typically very poor. So, now that you know what a stonecutter is, let's find out what he learns. So there once was a stonecutter who was dissatisfied with himself and his position in life. One day, he passed by a wealthy businessman's house, and through the open gateway, he saw many fine possessions and important visitors. How powerful that businessman must be, thought the stonecutter. He became very envious and wished that he could be like that businessman. Then he would no longer have to live the life of a mere stonecutter. To his great surprise, he suddenly, poof, he became the businessman, enjoying more luxuries and power than he had ever dreamed of. But he was envied and hated by those less wealthy than himself. But soon, the king passed by, carried in a big chair, accompanied by attendants and escorted by soldiers beating gongs. Everyone, no matter how wealthy, had to bow before the procession. How powerful the king is, he thought. I wish I could be the king. Then, poof, he became the king, carried everywhere in his embroidered chair, feared and hated by the people all around who had to bow down before him as he passed. He looked, it was a hot summer day, and the king was very uncomfortable in his sticky chair. So he looked up at the sun. It shone very proudly in the sky, unaffected by his presence. Well, how powerful the sun is, he thought. I wish I could be the sun. What do you think? Poof! He became the sun, shining fiercely down on everyone, scorching the fields, cursed by the farmers and the workers. But a huge black cloud moved between him and the earth, so that his light could no longer shine on everything below. How powerful that black storm cloud is, he thought. I wish I could be that storm cloud. Poof! He became the cloud, flooding the fields and villages, shouted out at everybody. But soon he found that he was being pushed away by some great force and realized it was the wind. How powerful is the wind, he thought. I wish I could be the wind. Poof! Poof! He became the wind, blowing the tiles off roofs of houses, uprooting trees, hated and feared by all below him. But after a while, he ran up against something that would not move, no matter how forcefully he blew against it. It was a huge, towering stone mountain. How powerful that stone is, he thought. I wish I could be a stone mountain. He's got it. Poof! He became the stone mountain, more powerful than anything else on earth. But as he stood there, he heard the sound of a hammer pounding a chisel into the stone rock. and he felt himself being changed. What could be more powerful than I, the stone, he thought. So he looked down and saw far below him the figure of a stonecutter. So the stonecutter learned that the best thing he could be was just to be himself. He didn't have to be anybody else. So as you go about your day today, I want you to think about being the best person that you can be by just being happy with yourself and who you are. All right. And now I invite the children to go to their classes.
This morning, our cash offering will be shared with the Boys and Girls Club of Elkhart. This morning, let us remember that our values, our priorities, and our means determine for us what we will give at any time, for any opportunity. May we know ourselves so well that we are always able to give from our true minds and hearts. A morning offering will now be taken.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone. We'll be side by side. No one is alone. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone. We'll be side by side. No one is alone. Draw the circle wide.
In your sadness and in your grief, from the pain it seems there's no relief. We will hold you till the storm subsides. Draw the circle wide.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle. 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 Draw it this wide.
I could use watching that again, except I wouldn't make it through without crying this time. This is the fourth Sunday of the month, and this is the time when we recognize the joys and sorrows of the greater community, whether the other side of the state or the other side of the world. These events affect us indirectly by impacting the world we live in. This practice keeps us conscious of events outside of UUFE, outside of our own personal joys and sorrows, and keeps bringing our awareness to us of losses and gifts, pain and beauty from beyond, and allows us to bear witness. Today I'm going to be bringing the microphone around to everyone who raises their hand to speak, and then briefly speak the event or situation you are calling to our attention from your seat. If anyone has questions about what another has shared, please direct them to that speaker after the service. Please keep your sharings brief and hold personal sharings for third Sundays. And please avoid politically charged events that we may each value differently.
I'm very concerned about the gun violence in schools specifically. That has to stop. The escalating war in the Middle East.
Just the concern of immigrant families in the United States who are now being targeted just through hateful political speech.
I learned very recently of an organization called YouCare, which is an American organization that is charity that is collecting funds to serve vulnerable and displaced children in Ukraine.
I don't mean to trivialize everything that's been said so far, but I'm glad we can expect some more rain this evening.
That sounds like very basic, important to me.
I'm concerned about the increasing homelessness in this country.
May light and warmth come to all those who need and bring it. May we continue to grow in our awareness of our greater community. And may we always be grateful for all that we have been given. Amen.
as we are in this kind of more reflective, quiet part of the service, I want to share these words with you by Gordon McKeeman. It's called Contact. I stretch forth my hand, knowing not what I shall touch. A tender spot, an open wound, warmth, pulsing life, fragile blossoms, a rock, ice. I'm tentative, trembling, wishing to avoid hurt, wanting to link my life with life. Lonely, I desire companions. Naked, I long for defenders. Lost, I want to find, to be found. Will I touch strangers or enemies or nothing? My hand is withdrawn, but still it touches my vulnerable skin, my furrowed brow, my empty pocket, and my full heart. Do others reach, tremble, withdraw? Do they desire, long, seek? Are they lonely, fearful, lost? Will they grasp a tentative, trembling hand? I stretch my hand forth, knowing not what I shall touch, but hoping.
I'm going to ask you to remain seated so you can take in these words of this, I think, one of the most beautiful songs in the Teal hymnal. What is the number? My copy's broken off. 1053. I'm going to sing it through once for you, and then you sing it twice, okay? How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail that your loving is a miracle. How deeply you're connected to my soul. Thank you.
I have a reading for you today by Reverend Paul Tillich called The Grace of Acceptance. Grace strikes us when we're in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of a meaningless life. It strikes us when we feel that our separation is deeper than usual because we have violated another life, a life which we loved or from which we were estranged. It strikes us when our disgust for our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and our lack of direction and composure have become intolerable to us. It strikes us when year after year the longed for perfection of life does not appear. When old compulsions reign within us as they have for decades. When despair destroys all joy and courage. Sometimes, at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness, and it is as though a voice were saying, "You are accepted. You are accepted. Accepted by that which is greater than you, and the name of which you do not know. Do not ask for the name now. Perhaps you will find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. If that happens to us, we experience grace. After such experience, we may not be better than before. And we may not believe more than before. But everything is transformed. In that moment, grace conquers sin, reconciliation of bridges in the gulf of estrangement. And nothing is demanded of this experience, no religious or moral or intellectual presupposition, nothing but acceptance. So, a few short months ago, I wrote a letter of introduction to you all, introducing myself as your new minister. It included the typical stuff you would find in such a letter, where I went to seminary, my hobbies, my passions, and some goals. But it also contained a rather personal disclosure. See, before I arrived here, I had wondered how I might be welcomed and accepted. In my experience, even the most enlightened UUs can be uncomfortable with people who are different. You may recall in that letter that I told you that I am transgender. I easily could not have shared this aspect of myself with you, but I chose to do so because transgender lives continue to be threatened in a world that refuses to accept us. So it feels important for me that more people become better educated about the challenges those of us who identify as trans face, and how much we need allies to create and expand space for an expression of all gender identities. So a little backstory. When I was a child, I was the proverbial tomboy. I didn't know then that I was trans. I didn't yet have the vocabulary. But I played with my brother's G.I. Joes. I played football, I went fishing, and I'd rather play kickball with the boys during recess than hang out with the girls jumping rope or sitting in the swings. How boring. I abhorred wearing dresses and detested anything flowery or girly. And my mom said that she even had to empty my pockets out at night before I went to bed because there would be who knows what kind of various assortments of rocks and bugs and worms and other treasures in them. I remember when I was about 6, and my mom had taken me to get my hair cut. And I'll never forget how, sitting in that little booster seat, waiting for the beautician, I leaned over and whispered to my mom, "I want my hair cut like a boy's." I will also never forget the look my mom gave me when I said that. She didn't need to say anything, but she clearly communicated to me how totally inappropriate and unnatural that request was. I never mentioned it again, or any other topic related to gender, but I was left feeling that there was something not right about me. I didn't fully understand yet that the puzzle pieces of my identity that I wanted to put together, boy puzzle pieces, were inappropriate and not allowed. And I resented being forced to use someone else's pieces. I knew who I was. Why didn't everyone else? As I entered adolescence, I resisted puberty with every fiber of my being. My gender was questioned frequently, and I was neither accepted by the girls nor the boys. So teasing and bullying were commonplace, and I developed an extremely low self-esteem. I was very self-conscious and horribly shy. Can you believe that? I never told anyone about my inner angst, about my gender, not even my mom. And as I grew into adulthood, the thought of living within social expectations and norms repulsed me. And I felt very alone and isolated. But by this time, I clearly understood that to survive in the world, I had to put together a false puzzle using other people's pieces. That is, my identity was based on the projections of what society expected of someone born with a female body, and not my own sense of self. In fact, I spent the better part of my life chasing normal, much to my detriment. I was obsessed with the desire to be perceived as a normal female. I desperately wanted that acceptance and that validation, and God, did I try. However, in doing so, I inflicted a lot of emotional pain on myself by trying to live by society's standards. I tried to force my round peg into society's square hole, and when I failed, and how could I not fail, it did nothing to reinforce my belief that I was somehow less than. Paul Tillich's words that we just heard, that grace strikes us when our disgust for our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and our lack of direction and composure have become intolerable to us. Describes perfectly how I felt about my life up until about 11 years ago. Up until I first experienced that grace of acceptance. And that grace did, in fact, come when I least expected it. It was at the beginning of my first semester of seminary in the fall of 2010 that I met Brent, a fellow student. We became close friends very quickly. And early in that semester, we were walking out of class one evening when he disclosed to me that he was transgender. Had he not shared this with me, I would have never known that he was trans. And I felt honored that he trusted me with that information so early in our friendship. And his disclosure completely transformed my life. Over that semester, Brent shared his story with me, told me about his transition, and I listened with great interest, fascinated with what I was hearing. I never knew such a thing. This gender transition was possible. I mean, yeah, I heard words like the sex change operation, but I never really understood how a person could undergo this transition thing. Up until that point in my life, I had made peace, relatively, with myself, with the fact that I had a female body. And I resigned myself to living within the cultural and social expectations of someone with such a body. That's just how things were. I was still chasing normal, which meant I felt obligated to live as a woman, even though I never really accepted myself as one. So imagine my surprise then, and the swell of hope and the excitement I felt when Brent shared his story with me. Suddenly, my entire life went through a complete paradigm shift. All the puzzle pieces finally fit together. The right kind of puzzle pieces that showed the true picture of me. So many things made sense then. The realization that I was trans explained so much about my life experiences. And by that Thanksgiving, I had made the decision to transition to male. In that moment of that decision, I experienced the grace of acceptance by accepting myself for the first time. So in January of 2011, at the beginning of my second semester of seminary, I came out as being transgender. That is, I shared my true, authentic self and disclosed to my family, my church, my friends, and my school that I was transitioning. And what I experienced in that coming out was nothing short of miraculous. Again, I experienced the grace of acceptance in every aspect of my life. However, I was a little nervous about telling my mom. But it turned out that I had nothing to be nervous about. Because when I told her there in her living room, to my surprise, she started laughing. And she replied with a chuckle, "It's about damn time." I always knew. Really, Mom? And you couldn't tell me? Thanks. So, yeah, I was a little miffed that she had never broached the topic with me, but I was relieved beyond measure by her response. And even though my transition was relatively easy, it was not without problems. As a member of the trans community, I've experienced instances of hate, oppression, bigotry at the hands of fundamentalists and religious and political conservatives, both directly and indirectly. And just because of who I am, I have been labeled by some segments of society as being evil, perverted, godless, a threat to society, and a threat to traditional marriage. Horrible things have been said to my face, that I was mentally ill, morally empty, a Satanist, and that I should be euthanized. That last one was the hardest to stomach, and it still stings a little. However, as emotionally and spiritually hurtful as these labels are, the real problems come into play in the practical and everyday aspects of my life and my concern for my safety. In most states, I can be fired from a job, denied health care, denied housing, and be evicted if I am trans. And I was born in Tennessee, one of the 3 states that still refuses to change birth certificate sex designations, which makes getting a passport extremely challenging. Every single time I fill out a government form, apply for a job that requires a background check, every time I open a bank or charge account, every time I do anything that requires that I submit my social security number, I am outed. That is, my trans identity is made known to others without my knowledge or consent, because my social security number will always be associated with my former name and identity, even though I have legally changed my name. So there is nothing more unnerving than standing in the DMV in a crowded room of grumpy people and having to explain to the discrepancy between my social security number and my name due to a clueless clerk. And it's also potentially dangerous. And inevitably, the clerk has to summon a supervisor because my paperwork doesn't match. And I have to explain why in full earshot of others. It's a little nerve-wracking. And I'm sure you've heard about the so-called bathroom bills that would make it a crime to use a public restroom different than that of the gender indicated on one's birth certificate. So I would be required to use the women's restroom. Ladies, no. Not only would it frighten the women, but it would also put me at great risk for violence. And then there's the potential of being denied appropriate health care and medications that my body now requires due to governmental bans. There's the potential for the reversal of the marriage equality in the future if the radical right takes over control. And then there's the ever-present and inherent risk of physical attack if I'm outed in certain public areas. Now, I'm typically pretty open about who I am, and I feel especially comfortable doing so in safe spaces. But as the anti-trans rhetoric has been increasing in recent years, I am less inclined to be as open about it. It's a sad reality that I have to be more vigilant these days out of a concern for violence. But physical attacks are not the only kinds of violence. Microaggressions can cause great harm. Now, if you don't know what a microaggression is, they're comments or actions or questions directed towards someone with a marginalized identity, such as people who are trans, people of color, people who are disabled, that on the surface can seem innocuous or even supportive. But microaggressions cause real, often significant harm, though often the aggressor is unaware there is anything wrong with what they did or said. Many times, the aggressor considers themselves to be an ally. In regard to transgender microaggressions, specifically, curiosity is probably the #1 cause of inappropriate comments or questions that cause pain to trans people. Why people are so curious about trans bodies baffles me. But as one former congregant told me when demanding that I disclose something about my body, he said, quote, "Inquiring minds want to know." Yeah, no. His curiosity did not obligate me to answer. What I share about my story is my decision and is never a response to someone's demand or curiosity. And for the record, it is never okay to out a trans person to others without having permission. Even here, folks. If I want them to know, I will tell them. And even if a trans person is generally out publicly, it's not your job and can cause some serious problems. My wife, Erica, her parents are uber conservative. We've been together, 6 years now? They still don't know because they would disown her. So it's real. So yeah, microaggressions are commonplace. Even back home in my beloved home congregation where I first started being a UU, my chosen family. The people didn't always do a good job with the welcoming thing. I love these people and I care deeply for them. But sometimes they just didn't get it. And I experienced many a microaggression during coffee hour from extremely loving and well-meaning people with good intentions who wanted to be supportive. For example, people would ask me things like, "Have you had the surgery? What was your real name? How do you have sex?" Seriously, I'm not making this up. I regularly had people come up to me and say things like, "Did you hear about the trans speaker coming out to such and such venue next week?" Or, "Did you read this article about this trans issue or person?" And upon announcing my engagement to the congregation, someone said, "I'm so glad anybody can get married now? Really? What about a simple congratulations, right? Not very welcoming, and reducing someone's humanity to a stereotype never is. There were times when I, despite their good intentions, felt pain from their insensitive or hurtful words. It was as if I wore a sign around my neck that says, "Hi, I'm Dan. I'm transgender. You can only talk to me about trans stuff, and it's okay to ask personal questions." I did quite a lot of compassionate educating, and things improved over time as people learned. Fewer people asked awkward questions during coffee hour, and I became less exoticized. That's important. So over the years, the congregation has learned how to be more welcoming and more accepting. And by doing so, they helped me to feel like I was fully accepted as a member of that community. I became family, and it totally changed my life. So now I'm moving forward here. I know that UUFE is a certified welcoming congregation by the UUA. Yay. And that means that specific steps have been taken by the congregation to become more welcoming and inclusive of people with marginalized sexual orientations and gender identities. And that's a wonderful achievement. But the work is ongoing. The UUA now offers a welcoming congregation renewal program that assists congregations in deepening their understanding and practices of being truly welcoming spaces. Choosing to engage in the Welcoming Congregation Renewal Program clearly communicates to LGBTQ members and friends and the surrounding area that this congregation is committed to being an ally, and that this is a safe space where everyone can feel welcomed and accepted. And so I encourage this congregation to consider, we don't have to do it tomorrow, but consider engaging with that renewal process in the future. We have a lot more to do right now. If you have specific questions about this program or want to be involved, please let me know. And so to close, this is what I leave with you. I strongly and passionately believe that the lives of LGBTQ plus people can be transformed exponentially if we feel like we belong somewhere. If we feel accepted and not marginalized, tokenized, exoticized, or ostracized. When we are free to live as our true, authentic selves, our whole selves, without having to feel like we need to chase normal just to survive. And when we are offered that grace of acceptance, we are free to live into our potential without having to live under the shadow of judgment, misunderstanding, or fear. What a powerful gift. And you know what? We all have that ability to give it. And may it be so. So I invite you to extinguish our chalice. The words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. And go with peace. If people are interested, we might have time at the end after our postlude for questions. No, we don't. Scratch that. But do enjoy the postlude.
30 minutes or 60 minutes.
Go, lifted up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day.